This fire traveled maybe roughly 60 miles per hour. The firemen that were there, they were describing 200-foot flames. So there's nothing left. Paradise is
It's
lost. Hi, I'm Jabali, and I'm a refugee from Paradise, and I do frequency-based healing modality work for the community.
Hello everybody, I'm Phoenix, and I'm a traveling artist and musician. I play keys and I play harp.
I've done work in the frequency-based healing for approximately 10 years.
I travel all over the place, mostly in the western United States, but I have kind of like little gypsy stops, like places where I know I can pull in for a while and like hang out.
It was just a great pleasure to be able to have the opportunity to share such advanced technology with the people of Paradise before it burst into flames.
And Paradise was one of my way stations. So I'd stay there for months at a time, like on and off for the last few years. And I just happened to be up there when the campfire burned the place down.
This dog is just completely
Chilled
out. His name is Jack, and he's been with us for 4 years roughly. I think maybe he might be quite part snake. His tongue is mostly his main source of gathering information.
His nickname is Sir Licks-a-Lot.
That's true. Paradise was paradise. I had no wants. It had everything I needed. My employment potentials and my clientele I would be able to see was right down the street from where I lived, and so I would often, gather all the needs that I had for just general living in the town itself. Living in Paradise, it was just extremely convenient. So many magical places there. The nature just encompassed you.
Lots of trails you could go hiking on, and parks that you could hang out in. And all right, so should we fire this up?
Yeah, the trails were quite amazing. We would take the dogs with us and go through and just experience what was left of the waterways. Living there for 2 years, it got drier and drier, considerably so before the fire. Tinderbox style. The humidity levels were so low. At some points, right before the fire, I think the humidity reached 7%.
Which is pretty much unheard of on planet Earth. Like, we have been looking at other dry places on the planet, like the Gobi Desert and the Sahara, and they were consistently somewhere between 15 and 20% humidity. So 7% humidity is ridiculously low.
It's like the planet Mars.
We would go, like, we'd take the dogs out and go down the bike path and hiking and stuff, and it was so dry that, like, we could feel the moisture just being sucked out of our skin. And it was like that for how many months would you say before the fire started?
8 or so, maybe longer than that. At points, it felt as though the moisture was being pulled right out of the groundwater, literally, and just you can feel it leaving and going out up into the atmosphere. when the firestorm happened, it was like nothing I've ever seen before in my entire life.
It moved so fast. But we noticed it fairly early on. So we got up. You got up at what, 6:30 in the morning. Started, like, your teenage daughter. She started to prepare to go to school, and then what time did she like go to the bus stop?
6:45.
Okay, 6:45. I got up like around that time, and we noticed that like there was smoke in the air. The light, because the smoke was coming from the east, and so the sun was rising, and the light was like this really eerie orange. And then you came in with some like burnt things in your hand.
I had a bay leaf and some ash on my palm and said, "This isn't right. Look at that."
So, and this was, like 7 o'clock that you put these, ashes falling from the sky, 7 a.m. And then immediately we got on the internet and tried to figure out what was going on.
Nothing.
And there was no information at all. Nothing on CAL FIRE, and just nothing. And so what, you went to go to, I said you should go talk to the fire department because it's right down the road.
Well, I don't often do as I've been told. So, rather than go to the fire department, I drove to the lookout, which is not too far down off of Skyway. And so I can get a better view of where the fire was, at least, because I was texting friends going, "Where do you think it's coming from?" And my friend Kim, she said that it was coming from Comcal. So, and fast.
Which is about 7 miles away from Paradise, Comcal.
As a crow flies.
6 or 7.
Something like that.
But he didn't come back home to relay this information to me because then he got a call from his daughter, right?
Right as soon as I got back up to the house, the house phone rang. I picked it up. It was Eris. She said, "We're evacuating. Please come meet me at the church across from Kmart." 7 minutes away. I said, "I'll be right there." And I ran out the door and got into the car thinking that it would just be a little thing, no problem. Go pick up Eris, come back. And that's not what happened.
So I don't know where I was when he came home the first time, but like I must have been in the bathroom or something because he never talked to me. So like I'm clueless about the information that he got from the lookout. And I'm thinking, everything's fine. It must be brush fire. Got it under control. And so he goes to pick up his daughter, and you're gone for a while. And the sky just keeps getting like darker and darker and darker, and I'm like, this is not okay. And I figured I'd take my RV to the gas station to fill it up so that I had gas in the tank to evacuate should be. And I get out on the road and it's total chaos. Now this has got to be maybe about, I'm guessing 9 o'clock in the morning. And I drive up to the gas station, everybody's fighting for a spot, like people are cutting each other off, like total rudeness. And so I go in between two cars, kind of like sideways, and there's one pump, and I bring it all the way out, and it barely fits in my RV, and I start pumping my gas. And about halfway through pumping my gas, they shut the system off. And that's when I knew, like, it was really a bad situation. So I get back on the road. Our house was about, not even a quarter mile from the gas station. It took me a half an hour in bumper to bumper traffic to get back to his house, or our house. So meanwhile, he's chasing his daughter on a school bus.
She was being moved from location to location, and I was communicating with her through her friend's cell phone. And each time we were communicated, She told me of another place that they were taking her closer, to Skyway. Eventually, she was taken to the church in the Mormon church down in Chico, and we were able to be reunited with her at about 2 in the afternoon. But before then, quite a bit happened. I was up about right around Kmart, running back to my truck. It was suddenly black. There was trees in the distance that were lit, almost as if they had lit up from the inside. They were burning in a strange way. I could look a little bit farther up the road and see the shadows being cast, the light coming over the hillside from where Concal and the valley basically was. It must have been completely engulfed in flames at that time. I had no idea how dangerous it was. Pardon me. A kind of defense mechanism was online at that moment, and it was preventing me from really perceiving everything as it was, just so that I can get to the next part. So I found my truck, got in it, drove down the road along the sidewalk on the left-hand side of the road, around people that were in traffic and stuck. There were people that were walking to my left along the, before I even got onto the sidewalk. I would see people saying that they were getting better progress from walking and just abandoning their vehicles.
And people were abandoning their vehicles and not even pulling them off to the side. The other thing too was that, like, as the smoke got thicker and thicker, it was clogging the intake. Mm-hmm. And so people's cars would conk out. And that was another reason why people were abandoning their cars. So while he's chasing his daughter around, I'm back at the house waiting for an evacuation notice on my phone, which I've gotten them before about other forest fires in the area, as well as the Oroville Dam spillway disaster. And so I'm waiting for the evacuation notice, and nothing's coming up. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, the sky is just getting darker and darker and darker. I start throwing things in my RV, and I put my dogs in my RV, and the last trip into the house, there's burning things starting to fall on me. And at that point, I just said, screw it, I'm out of here. And I went in and tried to talk to his wife, Sandy, and she was in total denial. She's like, I gotta take a shower, there's no problem. Like, forest fires are really slow. It's not gonna get to us. We're like the center of town, And I'm like, it's raining fire outside. Oh my God, we're gonna die. And so, she's not really taking me seriously. So at that point, I just decided to leave. And then he called, and we had a conversation. I heard an explosion over the phone, and then through the air slightly afterward is like a gas station or something blew up. And at that point, I'm like, no, I'm done. I'm out of here. So I told him that, and I just got in my RV and got out on the road. And I'm guessing this was probably about 9:45, possibly 10 o'clock. And it is just pitch black. It's pitch black. And bumper to bumper traffic, like nobody's moving. People are freaking out. They're driving on the wrong side of the street. They're driving over people's lawns. There's traffic accidents happening all over the place as people just try to cut in front of each other in the chaos of getting away from this fire. And I'm in an RV, so I can't pull any, Grand Theft Auto moves. So I'm just like, and I'm looking at flames, behind me, and I'm like, oh my God. And finally I get to where the road opens up, and we were on the west side of town, so we were actually closest to the evacuation routes. So I think I was one of the early people out of there. And as I drove down the hill, there was there wasn't fire on both sides, there was just fire all to my left. And I drove down the hill. It took me 4 hours to get to Chico, and I didn't have my phone at the time, so I ended up waiting 6 hours to contact you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so back to you.
Well, it was pure chaos. The only way that I could get through all of the mess was just to be completely deviant and go against everything that I've ever been taught about how to politely drive. That didn't happen. I drove through lawns, I drove over places you're not supposed to drive, and made my way to a spot where I needed to get out of the vehicle and kind of direct traffic away apart so that I can drive across.
Because he's not even home yet.
No, I was driving back to my house because I had finally heard word from Eris, my daughter, that she was safe being evacuated in the bus and on her way down into Chico on Skyway. So I had to redirect my attention to get back with my wife Sandy, who was still at the house, and we have 4 cats. So I miraculously arrived at the front of my house through just pushing through droves of people going the opposite direction. So imagine a single lane road that has traffic for both directions, but everyone is going the same direction, and I had to kind of drive partially in the gutter and between bushes, and bring my mirrors in, and it was very difficult.
So you got home, and
Yes.
then you got the cats, and you got out of there probably about a half an hour, maybe after I did, maybe 45 minutes. But all I can say is that they were lucky that the wind changed, because if it had kept raining burning embers like it was when I left, then they would have not had 45 minutes.
There was a calm.
So they were lucky. And the winds were going all over the place. They had crazy crosswinds, and what would you say that the winds were like?
Somehow, when I arrived at my house, it was eerily calm. I walked into the house, and my main focus was just to grab the cats, get them into
Yeah, it was
crates.
just smoke at that point.
Our
Like,
lights were
thick,
still
black
on.
smoke.
And then while we were looking for the last cat, who was hiding in Eris's bedroom in the mattress, through a hole in the bottom of it. And so we finally found her. That's when the lights turned off. And the power turned out, and we knew that it was time to leave. So we grabbed the few belongings that were there near the doorway, and out we went. Thinking that, well, maybe we'll be able to come back. Perhaps it's not so bad. Those kind of thoughts went through our minds, and we really felt that the evacuation was a temporary order, not a run for your life.
It wasn't an order. We never got one.
Yeah, it was. Well, there was no actual evacuation order that was directly applied to us personally, but when I was driving through all the chaos to get to my house, that's when I overheard that there was an evacuation order on the radio. So I was listening in at the local radio to just kind of tune in. I was pretty lucky, actually. I was using Wi-Fi communications, which were still on. A lot of people who are reliant upon cellular lost communication, from what I understand. So you can imagine how difficult it was.
Yeah, and a few people died because of that, because they didn't know how to navigate in the chaos, and they tried to take a shortcut and ended up on a dead end street and just got incinerated. So then you got out and you drove through 2 walls of flames on either side, and then they couldn't go all the way out the evacuation route because it was on fire, and the police department and the fire department were directing people back up.
Yeah, we had to go back towards the fire after driving through what looked like, Armageddon. I mean, there was houses literally on fire. There's trees on both sides that were just burning. You can feel the heat.
Propane tanks blowing up,
explosions happening
tanks
farther
blowing
behind
up,
us.
cars blowing up.
It was very solemn. There was a lot of adrenaline running through our bodies. My wife was ahead of me, and I was following her. When we got directed to go back up towards the fire, to the other route that would take us to Skyway, which is called Pearson. That's when I started thinking deviant. I was like, okay, I'm not going to do what these guys are asking me to do. And I pulled out my map, looked around, talked with my wife, and said, look, you're going to follow me. We're going to take a different route. And we behaved ourselves up to about the little elementary school just past Pearson. And then that's when we hooked a left, and she followed me through a kind of a housing tract that had a loopy kind of road that eventually took us to Skyway. And so we were able to meet up with the Skyway route and then merge with the main evacuees and make it safely to Chico. And so we're supposed to be evacuated in zones. I live in zone 6, and so usually,
They went through fire drills with us before. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, usually you're notified which zone needs to leave, and then everyone in that zone evacuates in an orderly fashion, and that way everyone can get off the ridge safely. There's like 4 exits.
A huge population, kind of like, sort of on a butte, you would say, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's a, Paradise was kind of up on this butte, and so there really wasn't any, there's 4 ways out, but one way was where the fire was coming from. So there were 3 ways out. And that's not a whole lot of evacuation routes for a town of, 40,000 people, 45,000,
Well, it's
Well, I'm not talking about just Paradise. I'm talking about like the area affected by Magalia, Concow.
It's about 50,000.
Paradise, like the Ridge, as they referred to as the Ridge, people on the Ridge, because it was like a butte, a town built on top of a butte. I'm looking around, we're both looking around for places to live. I'm gonna try to go back to school. And you're still looking for a place for your family.
Indeed. Yeah, it's a rough time of the year to find a home. Well, there's a lot of personal attention that needs to be made towards one's own, life during this time of the year. It's seasonal. So I look for a miracle. I'm looking for synchronicity. Trying here and there. We're open to any kind of spot that lands us. It's just preferably near water.
Right? Yeah, preferably near water. I'm moving to Washington. It's the wettest place I can think of. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I had no idea how bad the humidity was while living there until I reached Vancouver, and wow, the humidity level here is just amazing. So thinking about going back down to that area of the world again. It's a solemn task, but there needs to be a rebuilding. So I have no idea how long it's going to take or if it'll even happen. Because right now it seems that Paradise is a militarized Superfund site with no real
time frame
date at which we will know that we can go back and at least kind of pick and look and choose and see if we can find anything that resembles something of the memories that we've lost. Seeing something there physically can kind of like maybe give oneself the opportunity to have closure. Without having that, there's a kind of tugging at one's spirit. And so there needs to be a way to kind of come to an ease, somehow. And so visiting the place that was once home will help, some way, even if I have to wear protective gear to do it. But it's still unknown. And that's the part that that makes it so solemn as to not know. At points, it felt as though the water, the moisture, was being pulled right out of the groundwater, literally, and just you can feel it.
We have been looking at other dry places on the planet, like the Gobi Desert and the Sahara, and they were consistently somewhere between 15 and 20% humidity. So 7% humidity is ridiculously low.
It's like the planet Mars weather system, you know, and so it was impossible, I think, for them to be able to even fly close enough to the fire to be able to bomb the fire with retardant.
Yeah, they did. They said they didn't. The fire department openly admitted that they weren't trying to fight it. They were just trying to evacuate people because that's all they had time for.
I don't know how many.
Freaking out. They're driving on the wrong side of the street. They're driving over people's lawns. There's traffic accidents happening all over the place as people just try to cut in front of each other in the chaos of getting away from this fire. And I'm in an RV, so I can't pull.